Last one, right? The chocolate cake will be gone in a nanosecond. Presuming that people still like
To the
chocolate.
big one.
Sorry?
2 nanoseconds.
It's a massive choice.
The Christmas cake, that last one.
Do they?
Apparently because of the
Yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah.
We're trying to find some alcohol-free ones. Christmas cakes, little baby ones.
Yes. Refuge. Is that done?
It will be done in January with the Langring retreat. Well, yeah, that's the plan.
Okay.
That's the plan.
But there is no reason to say that should be done.
Yeah. There can be many reasons. At this stage, no. Residential is another story, but you're already residential.
Oh, no, it's not for me. Somebody else has asked me about.
No, I figured it wouldn't be for you. So, yeah.
Although, no, it's never late for you to take refuge.
That's right. I'm always taking refuge. From the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed.
Oh, I rejoice in that.
Oh, yeah, I mean, gosh, I need it.
We all need it, but I rejoice that in your mindfulness.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes, it kind of, there are days which I feel that I'm close to taking refuge. Or my refuge is getting better and better. It's like close to where it should be.
Right, yeah.
It's like Geshe was saying today.
Anyway.
That I was saying with Dajman.
Yeah.
We go through the motions of saying prayers and
Yes.
all this stuff, but it's true. It's like
Lip service.
I think it's only when it gets into our hearts that where we get that.
Well, that I like also,
It
you know,
reminds us of that quite often.
It's
Actually.
like I said about before a measure was on a good day when I'm actually paying attention. This is how I do it.
Yeah.
All right, let's start.
All right.
I prostrate to the Arya.
Triple Jan, Krishna, here at one time, Bhagavan was dwelling on the massive Raj's mountain in Rajgir, in a great community of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration and perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of divine perfection of wisdom and beheld those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra, said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the divine perfection of wisdom? He said that, and Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon like this correct frame, beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition of factors, and consciousness are empty. All phenomena are empty, without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition, factors, no consciousness, no I, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no order, no taste, no object, and no phenomena. There is no I element in soul matter, including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, nor attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, because there is no attainment, Bodhisattvas rely on the well and perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear, having completely passed beyond error, reach the end point of Nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the 3 times also manifestly completely awakened to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment, in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of the great knowledge, the unequal, the mantra of the thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as the truth, which is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Tayata Om Gate Gate Pada Gate Pada Sangate Bodhisattva. Share Purja Bodhisattva Mahasattva to train and find perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan rose from that concentration and commanded the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Bodhiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding him in entirety, along with the words of his students, serves and overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan.
I
go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha and the Dharma and assembly.
From the accumulations
Choose now collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain this state of the Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. For the accumulations, may I attain this state of the Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings.
I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings,
may I attain this state of the Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. Alrighty. So I wanted to do a few things today. Olaf has asked a question yesterday, and kind of I was thinking of a few points in relation to Olaf's question. And the first thing that I thought with respect to it is, I remember way back when I was still living in Israel, I got some brief training in just talking in front of an audience, like, doing teachings or, giving a talk or whatever you. And one of the techniques that you get when when you have questions that you're not really sure of what to say or how to approach them is to say that's an excellent question. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you later, and hope that the person that has asked the question will forget about it. Or, I'll get back to it tomorrow, and kind of tomorrow you hope that everyone has forgotten about it. So I could have done that, but I still kind of thought of a few points with respect to Olaf's question. So I'm going to say a few things in relation to that. I thought of covering one of the secondary offenses and then looking at what we've done today. So let's begin with Olaf's question, a point from yesterday. And also I tried to reconstruct what the question was. And I think that how do you reconcile between non-fallacious evolution theory, and the 6 realms of existence?
Yeah.
I think that was the question. So, first off, within the 6 realms of existence, what we see here in our world and what evolution theory works with is humans and animals, including insects and so forth, right? So of the 6 realms of existence, 2 of them are extracted, highlighted. Obviously, evolution doesn't work with hell beings, or, it's not it doesn't work. It doesn't deal with gods, demigods, or hell beings or pretas. Darwin, and also we work with what we see at the moment, which is animals and human beings. So in this world, human beings are beings that look like us. In Buddhist literature, there is a definition of what a human being is, and I'm wondering if that definition is a pervasive definition, or it is a definition that works just in terms of describing what the characteristics of a human being are in general, but it's not necessarily pervasive. So it is said that a human being is that which is able to talk and understand the meaning. I mean, when I said that, I'm not sure that this definition is pervasive and applicable only to humans, because you can say that, well, parrots can talk, or animals also, they have own way of communicating with each other and also understanding each other's communication. But in general, I think that that's kind of a Buddhist way of explaining what a human being is, right? So
I guess it's where it comes is being able to talk and be shared with animals But understanding the meaning, I guess
Yeah.
you have to unpack what you mean by understanding the meaning, that it's not just the literal communication.
I think that probably,
It
you know, when I think of
allows for
understanding the meaning, is I think that probably many animals have kind of quite sophisticated mental capacities, maybe not to the point of humans. Some of them have maybe greater in some areas, but many of them have lesser. I think that what we have as human beings is the intellectual capacity to think and analyze things that belong to the past, and also to foresee things that will come in the future, and also come up with many ideas and theories and philosophies and preparations and so forth. Obviously, also other animals have some capacity to do it. And when I say obviously, I think that some do. Like, for example, they say that elephants, for example, has rituals of mourning. Like when one of the packs dies, even after a few years, they can come back to their, to the place where their bones were laid out, and they still grieve or have mourning rituals. So I think that probably you would deduct that they have some capacity to think of the past and conceptualize it. What the ability is to think and conceptualize about the future, I don't know. But in general, no, the point that...
Absolutely.
Sorry?
Absolutely. With migrating and stuff like that, those habits.
With what?
Migrations.
Okay, migration.
Yep, you know, they've got this habit that a certain time of year comes, right, off we go, we're heading back down south, and the salmon go up the rivers, and because we go up there to, you know, spawn, and I think they definitely have a concept of future and past.
Yeah, what it is, I do not know, but I think that probably in general, when we think of this definition, then this definition is a general description rather than saying that it's pervasive only for human beings. Anyway, the point that I was wanting to make was a few years ago, as I was attending some teachings with Siddha Rinpoche, he said that that's the definition of human beings, but when you think about it, then you can also have other worlds and universes with human beings that would fit that definition. But do they have to look like us? They don't have to look like us. And then he said something cool. He said that, for example, if you watch Star Wars, then you see all those kind of beings, Ewoks, do you call them? Ewoks and others. And sort of, well, they understand the meaning and they can talk. So you can think about something like that as something that illustrates humans of another world system.
So humans, just a generalization.
Yeah. So in that sense, kind of the theory of evolution, I think that was conceptualized in this world, might as well also work in other places where there are also other humans and maybe other animals. That's one point, but it doesn't say much about differences or parallels. Then,
because it only draws on the experience of this world.
Yeah, it only draws on the experience of this world.
And even more specifically, not only of this world, but of us Westerners. You know, I think that the concept of the realms, 6 realms, the concept of evolution, the 6 realms is an Asian view, and evolution is a Western, Anglo-Saxon view. You know, they're views from 2 quite different cultures.
Yeah, but you can marry them. I mean, then you can marry them in a sense that, first of all, I think that with Darwinist evolution, which also kind of speaks about evolution and survival of the fittest, it seems to be with the survival of the fittest, I think that it can work. There are a few aspects to that. It sounds like the survival of the fittest is might imply in a simplistic way that as individuals, if we can win over others, if we can eliminate others, we can survive. But you have examples in nature and also in human society that collaboration brings a cohesive and strong society that is able to survive or coexist together in a way that is better than societies that are broken down. So we don't have any, I think, examples in the current era and also before of societies that are completely egalitarian societies.
Completely.
Egalitarian, you say? Does that? Yeah, egalitarian societies in which everyone enjoys perfect equanimity in terms of resources or equality in terms of resources and happiness and access to.
I mean, historically, it was there in Indigenous community, in the sense of reciprocity is still there. There is still a sense of sharing, that what is yours is not yours, it belongs to others as well. There is that to some extent, but not as much as it was.
There is to some extent, but when you think of, for example, socialism as a theory, which describes like a perfect society, I think that we haven't had example of socialism working in a perfect way. Of course, you can take certain parts of socialism, try to bring on a certain type of egalitarian society, but it seems that it's impossible to implement it perfectly with a current state of mind that is still afflicted.
His Holiness says that I'm a socialist. He always says he's a socialist.
Yeah, I mean, social values, but but as for now, I think that we are still yet to see a society that is a perfect social society that actually functions. I think that so far, if you look at societies that have tried to implement it, no one has been able to implement it in a perfect way. Actually, when you look at those that have tried to use socialism and build a society based upon that, actually in many of them, it culminated in great disasters, these dictatorships that end up in mass killing.
It's very corrupt.
Yeah, so it's actually,
It seems as though the best option that history has shown us, and I think, that's been in India with like someone like Ashoka with a benevolent dictatorship. After he killed everybody, he decided that was, there was no satisfaction in that.
The error of his ways.
Yeah, he then became a benevolent dictator.
So then, so then going back to Olaf's question, then we can say that with the survival of the fittest, we can see that in human society, you have survival of the fittest, either in terms of building cooperative sharing communities that can strive or struggle with nature, with each other, with protecting each other in a better way, but it can also be interpreted on a personal level, outdoing your opponent. Also, I think that in nature, you have, examples of groups of animals that work together in a collaborative way in order to protect the group, in order to share resources with the group, in order to, make sure that the group can produce next generations. So it works also, in nature in a certain way. There are animals that try to outdo their opponents, and there are those that work well as a community. So I think that it works well with evolution in terms of the survival of the fittest. But also you can say that there's examples of how if you do implement some forms of equanimity and sharing resources, then also in human societies and also in nature, you have some proofs that it exists and also works. Now, in terms of...
Yes, we had that a bit in the 60s and then into the early 70s as well, but it wasn't pervasive. In other words, it wasn't supported. It was in New Zealand to some extent, but it wasn't supported at a government level, so it was very insular. Cooperative communities were established.
And then I think that kind of then, when you look at the 6 realms of existence from a Buddhist perspective and the way that the many Buddhist texts speak about times of degeneration, they say that the further away we get from the Buddhist teaching, there is a greater and greater degeneration. So the degeneration, I guess, that it applies mainly to human beings, because when you look at the aspects of degeneration, they speak about degeneration of afflictions and views and so forth. So they're stronger with human beings, but of course we also influence other states of existence like animals and so forth. So you can say that in terms of evolution, there's a progress forward. The fittest survives. In terms of times of degeneration, we survive, but then it comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of, at least according to this presentation of time of degeneration, it actually undermines our own very survival. So when you think about, for example, you have degeneration of views, degeneration of sentient beings, degeneration of afflictions, degeneration in terms of death. When you look at this current
Physical and mental illness.
Yeah, physical and mental. So when you look at particularly this day and age in which it seems that the world is controlled by crazy people, crazy leaders that have a lot of power. It's not only the US, but you had Russia and Turkey and Philippines and Brazil. I mean, they're controlled by people that are narcissists and have such great power that influences the way that billions of people live their life. And they create a system that is based on injustice and inequality that is getting greater and greater. It comes at the cost of the environment, climate change, and so forth. Our resources are depleted. So evolution in the system of this system of this fittest, the survival of the fittest, also doesn't mean to say that we will always be there. Since that there is a chance that at some point humanity either phase out or that we will be reduced. Animals, of course, also are influenced by what we are inflicting upon the world. So I think that in that sense, we also kind of play part in a certain evolutionary process, and we're here to see what will come out of that. So Olaf is saying, could the 6 realms be seen as psychological states into which we transition in a reactionary way, moment to moment? When we attain Buddhahood, we live the cyclic nature of the 6 realms. Yeah, of course, not only when we, I think that there are a couple of points in your question, Olaf. 6 realms can be seen as psychological states. You can say that to some degree there are psychological states, but it's difficult to say that therefore they're certainly not physical states. When you look at Lama Tsongkhapa's explanation of the 6 realms of existence, he attributes really full-on figurative description of the hells, pretas, and so forth, which seems as if he's describing actual physical realms of existence. Now, to check out what Lama Tsongkhapa says and say that this is not true, it is only psychological, I don't feel that I can say that. I think that some of his description cannot be taken literally because he does speak about specific locations of those places, and I think that you cannot find those specific locations of those places from a scientific perspective. So we have problems with Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation, but I don't feel that I can chuck it all away and say that therefore it's only mental and not physical. Then, so that's one part of your question, Olaf. The second one, could you say that it is a transition to the point in which when we attain Buddhahood, we live cyclic existence, the cyclic nature of the 6 realms? That's definitely correct. Not only when we attain enlightenment, when we attain the state of liberation, we live the 6 realms of existence, because the 6 realms of existence are a breakdown of samsara. So the 6 realms of existence are only in samsara. When we attain liberation, we live samsara, which then kind of makes you think, what about, for example, arhats with remainder, nirvana with remainder? So they were born as human beings within samsara. They attain the state of liberation, they still have this body of a human being. So are they part of the 6 realms of existence, or have they left the 6 realms of existence? What do you think?
Well, they've still got, they might, that with remainder, without remainder is when it still imprints, even though I can't remember how I answered that question. Now I'm going to think back because I remember asking a question on this. So even though they have got rid of their afflictions, they still have it on their mental continuum.
Imprints. So even though they've eliminated their afflictions, they still have imprints upon the mental continuum. They still have cognitive obscurations.
Yeah.
Well, you can say that, I think that you can say that in terms of they've left cyclic existence, they left samsara. So they're out of samsara in that sense, because they've attained freedom from karma and afflictions. In some sense, you can say that they still fit some samsaric descriptions in that human beings, they can.
They still have this form.
Yeah. In terms of the definition of a human being, they can speak and they can understand the meaning. If it's a human being, is it necessarily a human being within samsara?
No.
No, like a Buddha. A Buddha can appear as a human being, so they can understand, they can talk and understand the meaning, but not necessarily within samsara. So similarly, you can say that also arhats, even in nirvana without remainder, they have abandoned samsara. They're a human being, but they are not one of the six, within the 6 realms of existence. Do they still have a body that dies? Yes. Is it still a body that has been acquired through karma and afflictions? Yes. In some sense, you can say that they have 1 foot in samsara because they still have a body that has been acquired through karma and afflictions, but they have left samsara from the point of view of having abandoned karma and afflictions. But we have it seems that we spoke about it for 25 minutes and we still have to cover some verses from yesterday and today. So maybe let's suffice without to do it. Sorry, I see that Justin has also something to contribute, but maybe Justin, if you can leave it to maybe next time that you're here and we can have a conversation about it, all of us in person. Just want to make sure that we also cover some bits with respect to the verses. All right. So one thing that I wanted to add with respect to what we've covered yesterday. So we were speaking yesterday of arresting fury towards those who wrong those dear to oneself. Now, yesterday, Geshe-la spoke of point D under section 2, arresting it by means of the patience that pays no heed to those who cause harm, reflecting on the benefits of this specific type of patience, which means patience that pays no heed to those who cause harm. It seems that when you look at Shantideva's verses and the commentary, rather than speaking of arresting impatience when those who are dear to your heart are being harmed, Shantideva is speaking, and also the commentary is speaking about, it seems so, about arresting impatience when you yourself is being harmed. So you might wonder why do those verses belong to this section of arresting fury when the ones who are close to your heart, your dear ones, are being harmed? What does it do? Why are they still classified in that section? So just to make it, I think that it's a bit difficult to understand what I'm asking here. So let's look at the verses. So verses 72 73 says, "Is it not excellent if a man condemned to death is released after having his hand cut off? Is it not excellent if I'm spared from hell by way of human suffering? If I cannot endure even just the suffering of the present, then why do I not refrain from getting angry because of suffering in hell?" So when you read through those 2 verses, it seems that rather than getting angry when your dear ones are being harmed, it's still mainly relevant to getting angry when you are being harmed. Do you understand that this is, do you agree with me?
Yeah, same principle applies. It's the same thing.
So then, no, I was thinking about it, and then I read through Khenpo Kumpel's commentary, and he says that, he makes this interesting comment when it says that when someone that is dear to your heart is harmed, for example, they're criticized or they're harmed physically, you get unhappy about it. Now, if you're going to think that I'm not going to get angry, I'm practicing equanimity, it says others might condemn you because you're being disloyal. In a social norm, you're expected to take sides, right? And if you don't take sides, others will condemn you. If others will condemn you, they will despise you, they will criticize you, you will experience suffering. So if you're condemned and criticized for not taking sides when your dear ones are being criticized, this is how Shantideva explains the way that you practice patience. So it's a particular type of anger when you're being criticized for not being partial. Right? We are expected to be loyal, right? We are expected to be partial.
Yeah, so it's sort of like you're not supporting your mate's team or something.
Yeah. So the way that Khenpo Kumpa presents that, it says that in page 215, it says, it might be thought that if we do not help our friends when they are assailed, people will gossip maliciously about us and we will become contemptible in their eyes, right? So if you don't take sides, if you're not biased, then this is how our society works, right? It's not only our society, you can say that we're still biased. I'm still biased. So if you try not to do that, people look down on you. You're being disloyal. You're not being a good friend. You're not being supportive of your friend if you don't take sides. So it might be thought that if we do not help our friends when they're assailed, people will gossip maliciously about us and we will become contemptible in their eyes. In answer to this, Shantideva cites the example of an extremely guilty person when being led away to the execution is set free after having only his hand amputated. So this analogy works. So we spoke about this analogy yesterday, but it seems that what the commentary, following up from what Shantideva says, is saying that when we experience a sense of contempt from being disloyal, so to speak, to our friends, not taking sides, not being biased, we can think that the suffering that we experience for having a sense of contempt directed at us, others treating us with a sense of disdain for us not being loyal enough, is experiencing suffering in this life, but avoiding the suffering in future lifetimes that is attributed to being biased. Because if you are biased and you do take sides, it means that you're affected by not only bias, but by anger, attachment, and so forth, and you act based upon anger, attachment, and so forth. So the suffering that would come from that in the future is greater suffering.
I mean, I hear I understand the logic of what you're saying, and very good, very good. But it says, I know something that I say when, oh my gosh, such and such, she did this to me, and yada yada yada. And one of the first things I will say to him is that, where are they? Do you want me to go and talk to them? And you join them to show your loyalty to them, and that you understand what they're saying. And in some ways, when they see me getting up, they then sort of lighten up a bit themselves.
Yeah.
And so then we can, by showing loyalty, or by joining them with their feelings, it's almost as though that it loosens their feeling up, so that they don't take it quite so personally. Because when they see me, that I'm going to go and have a talk to them. Oh my gosh, we don't want tension going and having a talk to them.
Yeah.
God forbid us.
Yeah. No, which isn't Buddhist.
Yeah.
Is it? Certainly not. They're saying.
What if it is? If it's skillful means, if your intention is to help them lighten up.
Well, I think that kind of it's good to when we have a friend, someone that we know that has a certain personal problem with another person, it's good to be supportive of that person. But I think that here Shantideva says that, if rather than what Shantideva says, if we look at what the commentary is saying, the approach of the commentary, and also what Shantideva is saying, it seems that it's saying that when your friend is being angry about being mistreated, you don't have to get angry because you are the friend. You can actually help your friend and talk to the other person. You can try to reconcile and you can try to help the situation, but you don't have to get angry because that's what's expected of you.
Yeah.
You can actually.
So when it's about when it's affecting you, which comes back to your suffering.
Yeah.
And to therefore relinquish that, because otherwise you're just going to habituate more to that and suffer more future lives.
Yeah. And I think that kind of when we get angry, for example, when someone that is close to our heart is being harmed, is being criticized, is being harmed physically, we can react to that without getting angry and try to improve the situation, work it out in a way that would be suitable to everyone. But if we get angry, then and try to help a friend because of anger, it is likely that we will miss the target to a certain degree. But here Shantideva is saying, and I think that when we look at the commentary and what Shantideva is saying, it is one way of interpreting what he's saying. It's not that there's only one way of understanding those verses. You can understand them in a variety of ways and actually combine all of them together into a better way of dealing with a certain situation. So you can say that when a friend of yours is being harmed, help them out, but try to do it without anger. But also, if you think that I'm supposed to be angry because I'm supposed to take sides, Shantideva says here that this is not the right response, because if you do take sides because of your biased state of mind, it will just, that sense of bias will perpetuate your suffering in future lifetimes.
Because then you've lost your impartiality.
Sorry?
You sort of lost your impartiality.
Yeah, because you lost your impartiality. So you can react to a certain situation, but how great it would be if we react to that without that sense of partiality, just being partial.
Yeah, I must admit, I joined them in hope to de-escalate it.
Yeah,
that's
great.
Actually,
yeah.
The one time that I did do it, which was recently, to the aircon guy. I said, they're not working you too hard, are they? And he said, yes, they are. Do you want me to do something about it? He goes, that would be nice. And I'm like, oh.
Take away the weak.
And you thought, what the hell can I do about it?
That's what I said. I said, nobody's ever wanted me to do anything about it.
All right. So that's the point that I wanted to make with respect to those two verses that we've covered yesterday.
Yeah.
Then another point that I wanted to bring up with respect to today, actually I had a few points.
We covered a lot today, didn't it?
Yeah, we've covered a lot.
Yeah.
And then when I went home and started to do some reading of the verses that we've covered today, I did some reading yesterday, but since that I skimmed over the material. And today when I read through those verses after Geshe-la's class, I was kind of thinking that I can't even remember covering those verses. It's like suddenly you read through them.
With different eyes.
Yeah, with a different eye.
Yeah.
So, arresting fear towards those who do well by one's enemies. So, there are three main points: abandoning impatience with the praise and renown of one's enemy, abandoning impatience with the accomplishments of our enemy's pleasure, and abandoning impatience with the accomplishment of material gain. So, at home, I was thinking that enemies are understood to be those people that we dislike. Often the way that I start thinking of these verses is I go to extreme situations. There are people that I strongly disagree with. And it's mainly when you look at the situation of the world now, it's mostly around politics. So when I think of how do I then prevent my displeasure with praise that is being given to someone that I disagree with in politics. So, I go into extreme situations. So I think that before we get to those extreme situations, we can work with things that are more closer to home. When we start dealing with people in our close surrounding, in our workplace, people that belong to the same organization, to the same Dharma centers, to the same community and so forth. Things that might not be as extreme as what you find at the moment with politics. It's not that you cannot practice it with politics or with looking at a political map. Of course, you can do that, but it seems that maybe a more practical approach is to start with things actually closer to home. When there's someone that one of your rivals or people that you have a bit of competition with in your workplace.
I think that starting closer to home also has the aspect that it's something that does directly affect you.
Yeah.
When we get in the realm of politics, it came up in the discussion group, is this really affecting my life? And we could say on a macro level, yes, it is. But, actually having something that's more immediate
Yeah. And it's interesting living in a community, and particularly living in a community, in a place or in a society like that, where we're being brought up to think of ourselves as individuals and to put ourselves first, promoting our interests first, where we find people in a community that suit our disposition. So, right? So we don't necessarily, we're not used to thinking of the overall benefit of the community. We're used to think, first of all, of ourselves. This is how we're brought up. So then in a community like that, and I think that also not only in this community, in general, in our society, this is how we function in the place of work, in other groups that we belong to, this is how we function. So then there's a person that we dislike, and they're receiving praise. They're receiving material gain. They have some pleasure and we dislike them. So it seems that this is what Shantideva is dealing with here. But also when you look at the commentaries, it seems that often the commentaries are presented from the point of view of how would you react to this situation in a Buddhist community, a Buddhist society. Like, for example, when you have your peers, when you have two other people that treat each other with a sense of praise, and you are jealous of those people, right? So one is benefiting the other, one is praising the others, one is giving gifts to the others. So Shantideva is saying that if you look at it from the Buddhist point of view, you would say that first of all, if one receives gifts, it is the result of merit. They have accumulated merit before, so they're entitled to it, so to speak, in a sense that that's the result of their own merit. But it's not only a result of their own merit, it is also a result of having practiced ethics, having faith in the three objects of refuge, having practiced things such as Geshe mentioned today, and this is also what the commentary mentions having practiced the six perfections. So not only generosity, but morality and patience and so forth. So it seems that the presentation often deals with how ideally you would see people in your Dhamma society, Dhamma community. But from our background, most of the people that we engage with are not necessarily coming from this background. So you can think that when someone that we dislike gets what they want, material gain, praise, and so forth, certainly it is a result of their merit. Even if they're not Buddhist, they could be staunch Christian, Catholic, could be atheist or what have you. When they get what they want, when they get gain and so forth, it is a result of their merit. They have created the merit for that before. In terms of trusting faith in the three objects of refuge, it's likely that they don't have it in this life. Maybe they've had it in previous life. How would I know? In terms of practicing the six perfections, it is likely that in this life, they don't practice the six perfections. They can practice things that are similar to the six perfections. Someone can be generous, someone can be patient, someone can have good ethics or abstain from harming others, but it's not necessarily that they have to do it in a Buddhist way. It might also be that they've done it in previous life, but could be that there are less indication in this life of doing it in the Buddhist way. But there are still ways of implementing what Shantideva says here in a society that is not a Buddhist society in general, that is removed from the society that Shantideva was active at, that the commentaries are describing. So that's in general. Was there anything you wanted to say?
There was, it's past, I've forgotten.
Okay.
That's very efficient.
That's cool.
Oh, I'm glad you do it too. I do that all the time.
I do it while I speak. All right. So.
What I did want to say was that, yes, you have that thinking, but I find that for myself, the harder aspect is even thinking like that, there's always a bit that, and so they'll get their comeuppance in the future life. Like, that's
That's what?
The other side of me, that, things like this, that's a result of their past karma, but they'll get their karmic fallout, in the future lives, from what they're doing now. Yeah. And that is not a beneficial mind state to have.
With a glee on, with a smile on your face.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not
not necessarily a
as
smile, just a wish.
a wish, a desire.
A wish.
Yeah.
Repudiation.
Yeah.
Judgment day will come.
Judgment, yes, they will come.
Yes,
Yeah.
I haven't relinquished that one.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it happens to the best of us. So, arresting fury towards those who do well by one's enemy begins with abandoning patience with the praise and renown of one's enemy. And then we have first of all, verses 76 and 77, which are interesting. It looks at a situation where you have a conversation that happens with two other people, or a group of other people. One is praising someone that you dislike. So Shantideva says here that the recipient of the praise is happy because they are being praised. But also the one that is doing the praising is also happy, because to speak of someone else's good quality means that you rejoice in those good qualities. So you have here two sides that are happy. It is, if you're practicing well, it doesn't make sense to be unhappy with those two sides, with the one that is giving the praise and one that is receiving the praise. So it says 76, 77, right? Yeah, 76, 77. The joyous happiness of yours is a source of joy. 76, thank you. The other 76.
Yeah.
Should others find joyous happiness by praising someone having excellent qualities, why, mind, do you not praise him too and be joyful? Right? So if you praise someone else, it brings joy to your mind. The joyous happiness of yours is a source of joy without misdeed, permitted by those having excellent qualities, and is also a supreme means for gathering others. So in relation to that, Khenpo Kumpen's presentation highlights 4 benefits of rejoicing in the praise of others. So even when those that you dislike get praise, it says that the 4 benefits for rejoicing in that joy. So we find it also in Shantideva's verse, but it's nice to just it being listed down like that. It's in page 216 at the bottom of the page. So it says that those 4 benefits are, if you develop joy when others are being praised, even those that you dislike, and I guess even more so those that you dislike, because it requires more effort to develop joy in the praise of others, then it is a source for happiness in this life and future lifetime. So if it does bring happiness to you, if it is a good state of mind when you praise others, it brings you happiness in this life. It's quite clear. But it's also a source of happiness in future life. So that's the first benefit. The second benefit is that through that, you don't do the negative actions. It's actually virtuous to praise others. Also, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas encourage it, and they do not forbid it. That's the third benefit. Right? Buddhas and Bodhisattvas praise it. They do not forbid it. And the last one is that it is the most perfect way for winning over others, for becoming more in favor in the eye of others. So it seems like it's a win-win situation for you, which also I was thinking about having joy in the praise of others. It seems like we speak here of having joy, but this is the function of also rejoicing, isn't it? Rejoicing in the good qualities of others, including the rejoicing in the good qualities of those that you dislike, which takes effort. So when a person that you dislike get what they want in terms of gain, praise, and so forth, if you rejoice in that, it said that it's an easy way of amassing the collections, right? We spoke about rejoicing before. It's a way of completing the perfections. So,
how does that work? Because I noticed earlier before today, Paul asked a really good question. I could just read it on the board. A lot of people receive gain through finances, or a really good, probably a classic example would be the election at the moment. So it seems like we're saying that hypothetically, if Donald Trump becomes president, it's okay to rejoice that he's been able to hold his position.
Rejoice in his success.
Rejoice in his success of being able to be the president for another 4 years.
Yeah, actually, this is one of the points that I wanted to also bring up just for conversation, because it's not absolutely clear to myself. So it's something that is good to discuss with your Dharma friends or your peers, just to get some more clarity and perspective. So, as I said before, it's hard when you start with extreme cases, like when you think of politicians. How do we rejoice in the success, praise, and so forth that someone that you disagree with gets?
Yeah.
Not only Trump, but I think that also Australian politicians, Bolsonaro in Brazil, Erdogan, Xi Jinping, or what have you. It seems that kind of when you rejoice in the good qualities of others, you need to be really true to yourself, or really true in your assessment of what is a good quality and what is not a good quality.
Yes, it's rejoicing in the good qualities.
Yeah, it's rejoicing.
Yes. They're the key words, aren't they?
Yeah.
Good qualities.
Yeah. So then when you think of, for example, Donald Trump and also other politicians around the world have discriminatory policies.
Yeah.
When you look at the elections in the US and some of the things that the Republicans are trying to rid of is, for example, Obamacare, any social care. I mean, from my point of view, it is a good thing to care for your society, people in our society. From their point of view, it's the survival of the fittest. Why should I pay for someone that is disenfranchised? It's not my role. It's their problem. So if you're a Republican and you believe that in the survival of the fittest, in the free market ideology, you will praise Trump. This is a good thing to do. From my point of view, it's not a good thing to do. So if they praise each other for this policy, how do I rejoice in that praise? Am I rejoicing in something that I think is not ethical?
Yeah, so we're using the foundation of ethics.
But you have to look at the good qualities, again, from a Buddhist perspective.
Yeah, so you have to look at qualities from a Buddhist perspective. And I think that when here Shantideva says that you should rejoice in the praise that others get, you should actually assess whether this, in a way that is not biased, to check whether this praise accords with reality. So, for example, I see that with sometimes people, in some of the issues that I faced before, or sometimes I still face, you have someone that you have a problem with, and other people praise them. They're smart, they've been doing good things and so forth. Sometimes we tend to downplay that. We say that, that was a good thing to do, but blah, blah, blah. We find excuses why we downplay that praise. So even though they've done a good thing, an ethical thing, even though they've done, you could say from a Buddhist perspective, something great, we say that, it's true, but blah, 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 they have other negative qualities. So we find ways to actually minimize it, which is indicative of how we dislike the praise that we got. So if there is something to praise, if it is a good quality, praise it. Be happy about it. Even if it's someone that you dislike, be happy about it.
Seems like praise is operating on the principle of impartiality. So you're just taking facts a certain way something is, and if it's ethical and if it's that, then it's worthy of praise, regardless of that person having unethical traits within them. It might rub us the wrong way.
But I also think we have to look at what's our purpose of doing this is our mind training. So it's about empowering our mind, focusing on that rather than going to the negative side, which we're so easy and quick and it can be then debilitating, depressing, and all of those things. So you've disempowered yourself.
So you said, I'm just repeating it for the people at home. So we've spoken before about looking at the good qualities of others rather than tending to dwell on the negative qualities, because if you tend to neglect to dwell on the good qualities, brings up this negative state of mind. Was that what you're saying? Or not quite?
No, it's about our mind training.
Yeah.
Right. So by focusing on the good aspects, we're training our minds
to be positive as opposed to being negative.
Yeah, as opposed to going always to the negative, finding fault, criticizing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. Yeah.
Just as you were saying before about bringing it closer, because I don't know about, I mean, I don't see a lot of the, we don't see the good qualities. The media, we see what the media puts out about all these people. But we've got to remember too that everybody apparently has Buddha nature, so there must be in there somewhere some good qualities.
Yeah.
Just because we're not being shown those good qualities doesn't mean they don't. So it's getting in mind, I think, you know, that we only see these really negative aspects, but somewhere there must be something good. His karma has obviously, for him to be in the position, Trump, this is, you know, to be in the position that he is in now, I mean, if it's karma, then wow, you know, that's, you know, that speaks for itself. But the fact that he may be, whatever he's doing with his life is his karma for his next life too, but we don't see a lot of the good qualities that obviously he might have in there, I don't know. But it's the same with all of them. And it's even when there is people closer to us too, sometimes we just don't see the good qualities. Everybody's got good qualities, haven't they? We don't see them.
That's right. That's right. Everybody has Buddha nature, everybody has good qualities for sure.
Yeah, everyone has Buddha nature, everyone has good quality, even if you don't see that.
Down the throat.
Yeah. I think that, again, kind of, when we think of people that we have had problems with, and when they get good things, praise and so forth, we do have a mind that says that, yeah, you know, maybe it's good, but blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So at this point, Shantella says, just be happy. Even if kind of you have that blah, blah, blah mind that kind of thinks of what they've done in the past, if it's a good thing, recognize it to be a good thing.
And I think their minds to be happy. I was thinking about when His Holiness, you know, when the Mani retreat started, and His Holiness, may peace arise in the minds of the Chinese leaders. And you think about it and think that would be a win-win, because if there's peace in their mind, then there's peace in the world.
Yeah.
And so you sort of think, well, if their mind's happy, then that's going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And this is another point that I wanted to make. So you have a situation where, you know, again, if we think about politicians that we dislike, that we disagree with. Now, if, for example, Trump is being praised and is happy about it, and the person praising him is doing it with a sense of pleasure, even though we disagree with the policy or what the topic is, if you're happy with someone else being happy, right, the recipient or the one that is given the praise, regardless of what there has been said, you can say it aside and recognize that it's not good, but just for the time being, they're happy, and you wish others to be happy. You wish, say, may all sentient beings have happiness in its causes. If you just have temporary happiness, what's wrong with that? It's also a result of positive actions that they've done before.
I think also too, it's a way of, if you join it with like the wisdom side, it's a way of seeing reality as how it is.
Sorry?
It's a way of seeing reality as how it is. So when I'm praying, because I'm sure there's things, I have to look hard, but I'm sure there's things that Donald Trump has that are praiseworthy. Like I'm sure he loves his family or something.
That's what I mean, the good qualities.
He loves hush
we don't
puppies.
get shown any of that. We don't see any of it, but they must be there somewhere.
Well, I think, especially in my case, even if I do notice good qualities in other people, because my view of reality is distorted, I'm projecting my own sort of like interpretation of reality. It's I'm actually not seeing reality, I'm sort of making up reality.
Yeah.
It seems like the Buddha is sort of saying, you know, try to develop that equanimity, because, you know, people do have good qualities and bad qualities. You shouldn't just judge a person whether they just have bad qualities or good qualities.
Terry is asking, does this mean that we should not forgo discrimination in those issues? I think that it's vital to have a good sense of discrimination. Often our discrimination is skewed. It is overshadowed by our attachment to those that we like and our resentment towards those that we see as problems. So no, we have a skewed discrimination. So it's good to have good discrimination. So we can rejoice in the praise or in the gain of someone that we dislike, but still be very clear about what is a good quality and what is not good quality. You know, if someone that has an immoral way of acting, they're doing something bad and they get a result out of that. It's not that it's good to think that that's good, they got what they want. If they have happiness, rejoice in the happiness, but don't rejoice. Doesn't mean to say that you need to rejoice in actions that are not moral or praise that is incorrect. Like, for example, now if someone is praising another person for having policies that are discriminative, it's not that you have to rejoice in that praise. You're rejoicing in something that is not in line with reality. Anyway, that's my way of understanding that. That's my way of understanding that. Also, I think that it's good to continue to think about it because the world at the present gives us quite a lot of challenges to try to think about those situations from different perspectives. So it's good, I think that it's good to not resolve those issues in a way that is simplistic, but to look deeper into them and see if there is a way that we can work with our mind to get our head around those situations. If there is a problem, it's good. If there's a problem, it's good because it makes us think about those teaching more and see whether they're valid or not valid. So think about it. Maybe you can also bring it with Geshe-la. Maybe Geshe-la will have a different perspective of it. All right, let's leave it here for now. This larger man become a Guru Buddha, lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhisattva not yet born arise, and may that arisen multiply and increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig cleansing God, so please remember to samsara ends. You uphold the subdued moral way, such a bountiful moral, standing, presenting, and spreading into monastic glorious doctrine, who mercifully publishes magnificent prayers, honoring the treasures. Protector of myself and others, your disciples, please live long. Thank you. Peace and love, people. There are a couple of questions here that I get to look at. All right.
What did Kerry say?
Kerry.
Don't worry.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be rejoicing in possible negative actions indirectly due to the person being happy in the negative actions they've done and they're happy?
Positive ethical qualities. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
We don't rejoice
Yeah.
in negative actions.
I agree, Kerry.
Yeah.
Thumbs
Agree.
up.
We don't rejoice in negative actions.
That's right. You know, I think it comes down to that what Choki was saying, you know, looking at the positive qualities of others and rejoicing in that, and when other people praise them.
Yeah.
That's fine, doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah, which means that we need to become skillful or knowledgeable in recognizing
Yes.
what is virtue
Yes.
and what is non-virtue, what is a quality and what is not a quality.
Yes. And that's one of Lama Atisha's thought transformation verses that's been really useful for me for many years, focusing on people's positive qualities. And the election is becoming close. Trump has bloody snuck up for the last hour. I've been here trolling the ABC. Oh, yeah.
It's like a horror movie where the villain is coming back at the end of the movie with a knife.
No,
isn't
it is. It looks as though